Everybody else wanted this life I had. Why wasn't enough? There were way worse jobs out there, less freedom. But I didn't feel free. I felt guilty for wanting to do something that would bring me joy and fulfillment because wanting that meant I wasn't grateful for what I had. So I kept on going, forcing myself to stay in this career that from the outside looked really great and perfect. But on the inside, I was dying. My soul was just dying. Eventually, something bad happened, and I spiraled down into a depression. I did everything I could to get out of that because I was not the depressed sort of guy. Living in Lake Tahoe, I went and tried all the positive things. I went to the gym, hiked up the mountains, swam in the rivers and the lakes, walked my dogs, and went to the beach. And I tried all the negative stuff too, but there was no amount of television or alcohol that was making this feeling go away. I was just stuck. I was rich, but I was stuck. And finally, after 6 weeks of it just getting worse, I finally gave in. I needed help. The problem was, help was going to be a week away. Everybody else wanted this life I had. Why wasn't enough? There were way worse jobs out there, less freedom. But I didn't feel free. I felt guilty for wanting to do something that would bring me joy and fulfillment because wanting that meant I wasn't grateful for what I had. So I kept on going, forcing myself to stay in this career that from the outside looked really great and perfect. But on the inside, I was dying. My soul was just dying. Eventually, something bad happened, and I spiraled down into a depression. I did everything I could to get out of that because I was not the depressed sort of guy. Living in Lake Tahoe, I went and tried all the positive things. I went to the gym, hiked up the mountains, swam in the rivers and the lakes, walked my dogs, and went to the beach. And I tried all the negative stuff too, but there was no amount of television or alcohol that was making this feeling go away. I was just stuck. I was rich, but I was stuck. And finally, after 6 weeks of it just getting worse, I finally gave in. I needed help. The problem was, help was going to be a week away.
But I am the world's biggest super fan.
You're like a super fan.
Welcome to the Business Superfans podcast. We will discuss how establishing business superfans from customers, employees, and business partners can elevate your success exponentially. Learn why these advocates are a key factor to achieving excellence in the world of commerce. We discuss the invaluable insights of business owners who have successfully implemented the strategies in the book to build their own team of devoted superfans. Gain insightful knowledge from the experts who create applications that help you create passionate superfans. This is the Business Superfans Podcast with your host, Freddie D.
Ready!
Hey, Superfans Superstar, Freddie D here. In this episode 106, we're joined by Jason Munson, founder of Neuro Linkers and a consultant with Neuro Change Solutions. With over 25 years of experience in personal and business development, Jason brings a powerful blend of neuroscience expertise and real-world strategy to help individuals and organizations master stress, foster resilience, and drive meaningful change. He's known for translating complex neuroscience into practical, actionable tools that improve performance, well-being, and leadership in high-stress environments. Jason has delivered impactful talks like Change Your Mind, Create New Results, and Hijack Your Brain, Pattern Shifts for Stress Mastery on stages such as CEO Space and Secret Knock. From leading Forbes' top-ranked events to co-authoring a book with the founder of Make-A-Wish, Jason's journey is an inspiration as it is transformative. Get ready for an energized conversation filled with science, strategy, and heart. Hey, Freddie D here with another episode of the Business Superfans podcast. Today's guest is Jason Munson with Neuro Change Solutions. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you.
So, Jason, tell us a little bit about what is your backstory and how did you end up working with Neuro Change Solutions?
Yeah, so back in 2022, I had what most people would consider to be a dream job. I was an Amazon seller, working from home, and I could travel anywhere with an internet connection. And I was making great money. I had a real flexible schedule. I didn't have to answer to a boss. I lived a rich lifestyle, I had great business. I was married to this beautiful woman. I got there in the morning for my kids to wake up, and I got to put them to bed every night. I lived in a beautiful place. I live in Lake Tahoe, California. But the truth is, I hated it. I was constantly stressed out and angry. My wife felt like she was walking on eggshells whenever I was around because of my explosive temper. I felt trapped. I was chained to my laptop and handcuffed to my cell phone. Most people don't realize that as a third-party Amazon seller, they require you to work 365 days a year, no time off, no vacations, no sick days, and any benefits you've provided for yourself. The people I worked with were dishonest, demanding, and greedy. I felt terrible because I believed I should be happy and grateful for what I had. Everybody else wanted this life I had. Why wasn't enough? There were way worse jobs out there, less freedom. But I didn't feel free. I felt guilty for wanting to do something that would bring me joy and fulfillment because wanting that meant I wasn't grateful for what I had. So I kept on going, forcing myself to stay in this career that from the outside looked really great and perfect. But on the inside, I was dying. My soul was just dying. Eventually, something bad happened, and I spiraled down into a depression. I did everything I could to get out of that because I was not the depressed sort of guy. Living in Lake Tahoe, I went and tried all the positive things. I went to the gym, hiked up the mountains, swam in the rivers and the lakes, walked my dogs, and went to the beach. And I tried all the negative stuff too, but there was no amount of television or alcohol that was making this feeling go away. I was just stuck. I was rich, but I was stuck. And finally, after 6 weeks of it just getting worse, I finally gave in. I needed help. The problem was, help was going to be a week away, and I knew that help was going to come in the form of a pill, which wasn't going to solve my problem. It was just going to be a Band-Aid. And some research that has been done on antidepressants show that 40 to 60% of people who take antidepressants do not experience the intended effect, but they can still experience the side effects. I didn't want to be numb in my life. I wanted to be at the beach. I wanted to kiss my wife and feel it. But at that moment, my world was absolutely collapsing, and I was scared and desperate. I needed help now, not a week from now, and not a pill. That's when I remembered a podcast I had heard a few months before about how our thoughts not only influence our emotions, but can shape our reality. That idea stuck with me. So I did some searching online and I found a course on the neuroscientific model of change. I locked myself in my office and I buried myself at work trying to figure out what was going on inside my mind. That day changed everything for me. I learned that I couldn't be focusing on my problems and negative emotions while at the same time focusing on a vision of the future and feeling positive emotions. I could be in one place or the other, but I couldn't be in both places at the same time. My problem was I didn't have a vision for the future. I didn't know what I really wanted. So I spent some time learning some tools and techniques for changing my thinking. By the end of that first day, my depression was just gone.
Really?
Yeah.
It's an incredible story. It's very emotional and it really pulls you in. We'll talk about that later, but that's an incredible change in one day.
Yep. I felt that stress just melt away, and that set me on a path of radical transformation. I started studying and applying what I had discovered, and I went from being a guy who was angry and stressed out for most of his day to feeling like love and gratitude for most of my day. And as I started to show up differently, then things started showing up differently for me, and my life started to change. And as I kept on learning and applying. Eventually, I got invited to teach this work. I became a certified consultant for Dr. Joe Dispenza. I found that there is this one thing that always shows up when people are suffering or they're not getting the results in their personal or professional lives. And that thing is stress. And so now part of the work that I do is I work with CEOs, businesses, organizations, corporations, teams, to train them how to manage and lower the amount of time that they're in stress. Most people think that they handle stress okay, but the research shows that if you have not been trained in stress management, then you are in stress 70% of your day.
I would agree with that. I too have experienced some bad things. I used to own a couple apartment buildings back in the 80s. I lost those. I'm not going to get into the story. One was a 14-unit building. Another one was a 4-unit building. I can relate to the stress and the depression and your self-doubt. You start wondering, why me, and all those kind of things. Your blood pressure goes up. Your alcohol consumption goes up. You're absolutely right. It's a spiral down. I fortunately slapped myself upside the head and looked in the mirror and says, this isn't me. Because I used to drive a 635 CSI. Now I'm talking in my 20s. So I can completely appreciate what you went through. And it's really good that we're having this conversation, because there's a lot of business owners that are stressed to the max and need to know about this.
Yeah, and it's usually not just one thing. It's usually several things. They tend to stack on each other. It's one situation after another. And then finally, you'll get one more thing that you just can't deal with. And that's when you see people exploding, blowing up, and having the meltdown. And that's where people have burnout. It's this constant levels of things that are coming under stress. And that's not something that we can stop. The idea of a stress-free life, it's a joke. It doesn't exist. We can't control what things cause us stress. Things come up that stress us out, and we can't control all those things. But what we can do is get really good at shortening the period of time that we're in stress. And that actually is the definition of emotional intelligence. Being able to shorten the period of time that you experience a negative emotional reaction, that's emotional intelligence.
Interesting. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah. So then once we get out of the stress, how do we get into a state of creativity? When CEOs, executive boards, the C-suite team, when they are focusing on being in a state of creativity, it has a top-down effect. It starts influencing the teams underneath them, and they get into this creative space. When you're in stress, you're very narrow-focused because you're trying to survive through it.
You're reactionary. You're not proactive. It's all reactionary. It's, I got a problem. I got to deal with the problem. The rest of the company doesn't exist because I'm 100% focused on the problem.
And when people are in that state, they're going to do the very minimum in order to not get fired.
Correct.
So how much?
Seen it.
So how much does it cost the company when people are showing up like that?
It's an enormous amount of money, because I dealt with somebody that had depression at a company. The individual got put into worse depression because of poor management. They would train them verbally, and then they would say, okay, next week you start doing this stuff. Then they'd make mistakes, and they would chastise them, not in private, publicly. That just made them even more depressed. And they would have days where they couldn't make it to the office. Through some circumstances, I became in charge and ran the company. It completely changed the whole approach. And with this person, I started empowering them and started giving them more responsibilities and making them feel appreciated and recognized. They became much happier and stopped disappearing at work. We don't work at the company anymore, but they're still a super fan of my leadership because I empowered her and transformed her into being a better person. And now she's doing entrepreneurial stuff, and she's super excited.
That's wonderful. I love hearing stories like that. Great leadership is recognizing the brilliance in people, recognizing the value in people. There's a saying, there's no throwaway people. Figuring out what needs to happen for a person to feel valued inside an organization so that they're showing up and performing is critical to the success of the business. When you have someone like that, where you're helping stress get out of the depression, them feel good about what they're doing so that they have some job satisfaction. So now that they're engaged in the more productive, their performance improves. It affects not just themselves, but their family and friends. They're producing better results inside the company. And when you do this on a company-wide basis, you're changing the culture of the company. It goes straight to the bottom line. The company's more profitable.
Oh, absolutely, Jason. One of my quotes in my book is people crawl through broken glass for appreciation and recognition.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, hey, Jason, I really appreciate your extra effort. You did a great job. You knocked it out of the park. Versus, hey, everybody, I want to take a moment to recognize Jason for the things that he's done to help elevate the company. Now you feel, wow, you got edified. And more importantly, you've just supercharged everybody else because now they're going, man, I want to be that person that gets recognized.
I know a company that I've worked with for years. One of the management practices is they'll have that, recognition. But they'll also do bonuses. They do a standard bonus every year that everybody gets the same amount. For every year that you work there, you get another $100. They'll do public recognition, private recognition, like hand in an envelope and say, hey, just tell you you're doing a really great job, and a gift card for dinner or Amazon.
Yeah, one of my quotes is, the little things are really the big things.
Mm-hmm.
And just that little gift card is a huge thing.
Right.
So let's dive into how you work with leadership, and perhaps you can share a story of how you transformed an individual or an organization with what you do.
I'll share one with you that's actually kind of recent, raw, and rather personal. When people go into stress, some systems inside the body get really active and other systems that shut down. In stress, your sympathetic nervous system activates, and this is the fight, flight, or freeze response. We're designed to respond with when met with a threat. Now, it's one thing when it's a lion in the Serengeti desert, but it's different when it's a coworker. You can't run away from that person, and you can't just strangle them. So a lot of people sit there with this energy. Systems inside the body get us ready to run or fight, but there's some other systems in the body that shut down. Your digestive system shuts down because it's not a time to eat or digest. Your immune system shuts down because your body's not so concerned with fighting a disease that may or may not kill you as it is with meeting the immediate threat in the environment. So you talked about the person that you worked with having a lot of sick days. Yeah, if your immune system is shut down, you're going to be immunocompromised and sick more often, or you just need the day off. I worked with an administrator for a nursing staff, and he says that sometimes at the end of the day, they'll have one of these hard days where they get a lot of trauma patients coming into her. And at the end of the day, he says, I can just look at the nurses. I can just tell which ones are going to call in sick tomorrow because they don't feel like they can do their job safely because of the stress that they're under. One of the things that shuts down when a person is under stress is their reproductive system, because it's not time to reproduce when you're in survival. All the energy is gone to the extremities to run or to fight. So there's no energy left for a long-term building project like making a baby. If you have a mother that's in constant stress, 70% of her day, it has an effect on the pregnancy. Last year, a good friend of ours decided to get pregnant. And we've known her for years, and she's really high anxiety, really much a worrier. That's just that's her personality. It's her state of being. And so about 3 months into her pregnancy, she starts bleeding and taking trips to the doctor. There's real concern about child's survival. I get her and her husband on the phone, and I said, here's what I want you to do. And this is one of the treatments for stress. I said, I want you to write down your child's birthday, and I want you to write down the perfect birthday. Like, how is your pregnancy going to go? on that day. Not what you think is possible, but what the ideal birthday for your baby. Every time you worry about something, use that as a signal to review that vision of the future.
You're going deep into the subconscious.
We are programming her subconscious.
Yep.
So we're programming her subconscious to take stress and turn it into a vision of the future. I said, here's the real important part. I want you to fall in love with it. Fall in love with that day. So it's having the image and the emotion. It's the stimulus and the response. It's the thought and the experience, right? We're doing it in the brain, but when we feel love for our vision of the future, we feel it inside our body. The end product of an experience is an emotion, and emotion affects genetic expression. This is when you hear somebody say, the guy's so anxious, he's going to give himself an ulcer, right? There's some truth to that. Our thoughts and our feelings affect our health. We manifest stuff. And this has been proven scientifically. It's the science of epigenetics. This is not woo-woo, somebody's opinion or some guru out there on the mountain. This is actual science that has shown this. She followed this practice, created her vision for the future, fell in love with that vision. Her baby was born about 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Wonderful boy, completely healthy. Came into this world a little bit early. But yeah, she got the result that she had manifested by the thoughts that she was thinking. So there's other stories about businesses and stuff like that, but it's such something that's on an individual level. We change cultures by changing individuals. And imagine how she's still working while she's pregnant. How is she going to be showing up at her job if she's focused on an ideal vision of her future versus if she's worrying about losing her baby because she just spent Sunday night at the hospital because she's bleeding, and she shows up on Monday morning after that experience? How's she going to show up at work?
Yeah, wreck.
Yeah, so it's...
But more importantly, what you just did, I want to not forget this point, is you really transformed them, both the husband and wife, into super fans of you, because you really transformed them in the situation that they were in.
Yeah.
So that's something really cool. Let's go back to the business a little bit and we talked before we started recording a little bit about leadership and how that transcends the entire ecosystem. Let's talk about how leaders, all the way from the CEO or the SMB business owner or the director, can unpack the stress that they're dealing with everyday business.
Yeah, that's a good one. Great question. I shared with you earlier that my big aha moment, what got me depression, was when I learned that you can't focus on your problems, and you can't focus on the things you're worried about for your future. You can't focus on the problems from the past. You can't do that and focus on a positive, ideal vision of the future and feeling positive emotions. You can be in one place or the other, but you can't be in both. And I was such a wreck. I'm running this business, this Amazon business, and I've got several employees, and I've got distributors all around the country. I've got people that are relying on me. I got my family that was working with me as well. And I got to the point, I'm like, can I even keep on doing this? So getting really clear on what the ideal vision is for the future. The mistake that most people make is they go for what they think they can get, when they really need to for what they would want if there were no limitations. When people for what they want without thinking of limitations, they don't limit the possibilities. One of the big problems in our human nature is that we limit what we think is possible based on our experience. By focusing on an ideal vision of the future without limitations, you're allowing possibilities to come to you that you might otherwise not recognize if you're having a limited level of thinking. Right?
Yeah, let me add to that. Think of a child. It's got an imagination that's just incredible. And for them, all is possible.
Yeah.
And we somehow grow up and nothing is possible. We get into a complete negative mindset, and it's, I don't have enough money. I can't do this. I can't accomplish that. We've been programmed, can't, don't, and all that stuff. And what you're doing is you're helping people deprogram that and reprogram it with the mindset of I can and I can accomplish things. And when it comes to leadership, some people in leadership get good training, but it still doesn't get down to personal interaction. I mean, that's a whole nother ballgame in itself. And you can be a book leader that you know all what you're supposed to do, but you still got to interact with people and create a culture that is an inviting and energized culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of that is the vision you have for your people. I've had some real world experience with this. My family has been my greatest tutor as a consultant and a coach. My oldest son, my biological nephew, came to live with us when he was 5, and we adopted him when he was 9. He's now 15 years old. And been a big challenge. Recently, we determined he has fetal alcohol syndrome. His mother was smoking and drinking alcohol when she was pregnant with him. So that comes with a bunch of behavioral challenges. When you're with a teenager, the brain is working the way it's supposed to. Holding a vision for their greatness is the best thing I can do.
Sure.
But when we're working with teams, and it's something that I've really had to learn how to do myself just because of my growing up and my conditioning, is seeing people as valuable and seeing that they have something awesome to contribute. And even seeing them unrealistically as that they can contribute something that nobody else in the world can contribute.
That's what I want to hit on and re-emphasize, because I just had a conversation with an individual about how sometimes people creating drugs and medicine, or the janitor at a hospital, don't understand that their roles have a tremendous impact. The janitor in a hospital is important because they keep it clean, minimizing unnecessary infections. The person developing medicine is saving lives. That's why I want to reiterate that, because if you take the time to recognize those people, they become super fans of you because they feel important. They're mopping the floor with a better attitude because they understand the goals and the mission. Take a racing rowing team. You got 8 people and each one has an individual oar. So you got to get everybody in synchronization, going in one direction, being fired up about each other. So you've got to create that culture, and they have to have the vision that you're talking about. They've got to look at the big picture. For them to win a race, everybody's got to be in sync. Everybody's got to know the direction, the goals, the vision. And the vision is winning the race. And that's what you're doing, helping people get that vision so they can win the race, whatever that race is.
Absolutely. I'll share another story with you. Our family is big Disney fans. We went to Disney World, and the castle at Disney World has what's called the Disney Dream Suite. It's a place where you can stay overnight, but you cannot pay any amount of money to stay there. You can only stay there by being invited or by winning a contest. I was like, how could we get Disney to give us the Dream Suite? One of the things at Disneyland, at Disney World, is that people put on for themselves. So I created it that says, if you can see it here, It says, "Thank you from a fan." And so what we did, me and my wife and my kids, we went around Disney World, and every time we saw a cast member, we would go up to them and say, "I want to give you this. Thank you for showing up today, making Disneyland a special place for everybody." I was shocked at the outpour of gratitude from Disney employees that felt like they were never recognized, that nobody paid any attention to them.
Goes back to what we said.
Starving, like you said, look, crawl through broken glass to get the attention. And the thing was so sad is that their positioning was so poor that they didn't have much to give back, if anything at all. I went up to the Rose Bar in the Grand Floridian and I gave it to the bartender. This is where you buy glasses of scotch. They're hundreds of dollars. I hand him this pen. I tell him, thank you. He looks at it and he says, you know what? I've got a special spot in my collection where I'm going to keep this. Nobody's ever done this for me. We're getting off the boat and give one to the person to give to the captain of the boat. And we're walking down the gangplank and the captain of the boat gets on the bullhorn and says, thank you, friends. You know, just this outpouring of gratitude for being recognized.
That's how you create superfans.
Yep. And the people that could give us things at the end of the day when they were cleaning out the slushy machines, stuff that was just going to get thrown away, they would give us free slushies. One thing I kept that somebody gave me was these stickers. An employee meeting, little things to the employees as something special. This Disney cast member gave me these stickers, and I'll treasure them forever. I'll never forget the lesson I learned about creating superfans, but also just how people need to be recognized. And just saying thank you to somebody for showing up and doing what they're supposed to do can mean everything to them. So,
yeah, you're absolutely correct. It doesn't have to be somebody that's done something perfect. Even someone improving, recognize that improvement. So it fuels them to continue improving. And that's what I did with that one individual. She was still making mistakes, but I kept saying, look where you're at and look where you were. And she goes, you're right. I didn't look at it that way. Change of mental framework. And she helped take a department from under $100,000 to over $225,000 in revenue in 1 year. So she grew it by over $100,000.
That's incredible. That's wonderful. I think you don't have to beat people up. We know how to beat ourselves up just fine.
Oh, we do an excellent job.
Great job.
That's one of the things I talk about. I use dating as an example because everybody can relate to it. You know, when you're dating somebody and you put a phone call, and I use this for sales, you've dated with somebody and everything went well, you follow up and you don't hear anything. Or you've been dating for a little while and then all of a sudden they don't call you back for a day or two because you're still early in the dating and your mind goes completely negative. And most of the time you're completely wrong about the perception you had in your own head.
Yeah, that's actually a stress response. It's one of the things that we teach training with businesses and corporations is if you ever go to a worst case scenario, that is a sign that you're in stress. Our brains are built that way because part of survival is procreation, right? So if you mess up on a day, it's like, oh no, you're thinking, I messed it up with this person. And your biology goes, I'm never going to be able to reproduce. So you go to these worst case scenarios, but we do it in business as well.
It's a sales guy reaching out to a prospect, hasn't called, hasn't heard back, delivered a proposal, all that stuff. One of the worst things you can do as a salesperson is become needy and say, hey, I sent you this email, and another day later, how come you haven't responded?
Right.
Sometimes they actually have a life. You got to sit back and hit the pause button on yourself. I've had more times where I've let a week or so go by and I sent an email, hey, it's been a little bit of time. I know you're busy. Just wanted to know where we're at with the project. And usually they come back, oh, you're right. I'm so bad. Let me get that to you. And poof. Now they feel obligated. I ended up closing the sale faster because I just let some time in between.
When I was growing up, one of my friends as a teenager said this. I never heard anybody else say this. Desperation is a stinky cologne.
Yep. I like that. I'm going to borrow that.
You can have that. Desperation is a smelly. It's awful when you're in a sales job, when all CEOs are salesmen.
Everybody in the company is really a salesperson at the end of the day. There's no difference. A customer success person is a salesperson solving a problem. Got to sell that person to be comfortable. The accounting person's got to make sure to get the money. So we're always selling, and people don't realize it. It's, hey, honey, where do I want to go for dinner? I want this place or that place. You're selling.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The accountant has to sell the CFO that their work is correct.
Yep. It's going to add up.
In the job interview, you're selling yourself. When we get into stress, though, if you talk about the salesman that's now in stress and he's thinking about the worst case scenarios, and he gets very narrowed on his focus because he's full on commission, then it matters. But if he's missed his numbers for a period of time and he really needs this one, and he's in stress. He's worried about it. He closes off. He's narrow focused. He's not thinking about the possibility.
That energy goes in the wrong direction, and he's not going to get that sale.
Yeah. And that's where, from a sales perspective, having the visualization, sitting down, closing your eyes, and imagining that the sale has closed, everything went perfectly. What would it look like? What would that person say? Write it down. Write down the vision of that actually happening, and then sit there and feel what it would feel like. Fall in love with it. Fall in love with that result. Then go make the call.
That's good advice. That energy transfers. I keep telling people that if you got it cultured or people are excited and they say, hey, Jason, thanks for reaching out to us. How can we help you? Versus, hey, Jason, yeah, John here. How can I help you?
Ugh.
I mean, you'll feel it right off the bat. People don't realize it, but it comes across even on the phone. It comes across even on emails. The choice of words you pick.
I have this with one of my businesses. I still have the Amazon company. It's a nice cash machine that kind of runs by itself. I don't do a lot with it. But there's this one vendor that I buy from. I never like calling them because when they answer the phone, it's always the same. Hello. I'm like, hi, this is Jason with, oh, hey, can you guys? Okay, yeah, I think we could probably do that. They are so negative.
It comes across. You just validated my point because you clearly stated, I don't want to deal with these guys. I got to deal with them. But if you could find another vendor that could provide the same stuff at even 5 cents more, you'd probably go with them just because you get better customer service and everything else out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually worry. They drop ship packages for us. I worry about my buyer's experience. There's just negative energy around that business. There's a company out here in Nevada that I work with, and they have a script for how to answer the phone as a receptionist. And the script is, it's a beautiful day here at Laughlin Associates. How can I help you? And they have to say it with a smile. They have to say it with a smile.
Because that energy comes across. So Jason, as we wrap up the show here, tell us a little bit about how can people find you and some of the services that you do with Neuro Change Solutions.
Yeah, for people recognizing that they have challenges with their team and not getting the results they want, we can book a discovery call to discuss that and see how I can support. To book a call with me, go to meetwithjason.net. That's meetwithjason.net. You can get on my website and learn neurolinkers.com. That's neurolinkers.com, neurolinkers. But yeah, if you resonate with anything that we've talked about here today, then definitely reach out with meetwithjason.net and let's figure out what the upgrade might look like for you.
I like that closing, what the upgrade might look like. That's cool. As we were talking before, you talked about something about books.
Yeah, so one other thing that people can do is go on lulu.com and grab a copy of my book, Rewire for Calm, How to Break the Cycle of Stress and Thrive. It goes into the things that cause stress, why stress is bad for us, more than what we talk about today. Also gives some strategies and techniques for what to do when you're in stress and gives you more insight into that. Rewire for Calm on lulu.com, Lulu, like Honolulu.
We'll make sure that's in the show notes.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation, great insights for our listeners, and we definitely would like to continue the conversation on another day and have you back on the show.
I would love that too. Thank you, Freddie.
Hey, Superfans superstar, Freddie D here. Before we wrap, here's your 3A Playbook power move to attract ideal clients, turn them into advocates, and accelerate your business success. So here's the top insight from today's episode. You can't stay trapped in stress and expect breakthrough results. Transformation begins the moment you choose a vision that excites you more than your fears. So here's your business growth action step. Write down one bold, emotionally charged vision for your business's future. And every time you feel overwhelmed, revisit it. Train your brain to replace stress with unstoppable momentum. If this conversation sparked an idea for you, or you know of a fellow business leader who could benefit, share it with them. Support the show with a donation and grab the full breakdown in the show notes. Let's accelerate together and start creating business superfans Let's accelerate together and start creating business superfans who champion your brand.
We hope you took away some useful knowledge from today's episode of the Business Superfans podcast. The path to success relies on taking action. So go over to businesssuperfans.com and get your hands on the book if you haven't already. Join the Accelerator community and take that first step in generating a team of passionate supporters for your business. Join us on the next episode as we continue guiding you on your journey to achieve flourishing success in business.